When you are truly in love with life, life always, yes, always find ways to love you back. Good things start happening. Situation when you really just are grateful for just the fact that you're living. And one of the things that I found that helps me the most is mind mapping. A mind map is a visual information management tool. Essentially, anything that you got thinking, anything you got swirling in your mind, a mind map is a perfect tool to let you take it out of here and actually see what it is you're thinking, actually see what it is you need to think about.
Hello, my friends, and thanks again for tuning in to the program, and thanks for being loyal listeners through the time. And I want to welcome you to episode 121 of Toward a Better Life, podcast featuring like-minded people sharing stories, ideas, and activities on what we can do to generate a better life individually and collectively. You know, in today's world, there are truly several needs out there, including the need to seek balance, harmony, compassion, kindness on so many levels, personally, culturally, spiritually, to name a few, but it all begins with each one of us as an individual. And that's what I like to share on the podcast from around the world, seeking others of the same spirit, heart, and mind. This is the platform. It's like a school, a venue to begin and continue that journey to wholeness and harmony. I also offer the opportunity for you to share your prose, music, poetry, or storytelling on the show as well. Please subscribe to the show if you haven't done so already through your favorite podcast platform, and do keep following for weekly magical insights into earth-based spirituality, self-development, and self-care. Also, remember to support the show by leaving your review on Apple and Spotify podcasts. It only takes a minute, and it really helps out the program to spread the word about it. Please visit my website too, towardabetterlife.com. You can also contact me to learn more about a free discovery call, and that'll help you on your journey one-on-one with me. Send all your inquiries to kevin@towardabetterlife.com. So, today we have a truly inspiring guest joining us. John Diggs is a Mappineering Mentor. Now, there's a term for you. And he's the creator of I Am Mind Map System, a transformative approach to personal development that combines mind mapping with powerful self-discovery techniques. John Diggs is dedicated to helping people live and love their best lives by using their own unique blueprint for health, wealth, success, and happiness. Now, through the power of mind mapping, John has guided individuals from students to athletes to parents and professionals, and getting clarity, building resilience, and achieving extraordinary results. So, let's all get ready to, I'll say it, dig deep into how we can all use mind mapping to better understand who we are, set purposeful goals, and unlock our potential. It's mind mapping for personal growth. Today I'm talking with John Diggs, and John lives out in Arizona, and he's got some stuff to share with us about something that's kind of interesting, and I really enjoy it, but that's called mind mapping.
Yes.
Hello. How you doing, John?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me, Kevin. I appreciate being here. This is exciting. I love talking about mind mapping too.
Well, it's something that's pretty powerful if you really apply it and you just get into a good space to do it. I have a fairly good idea of what it amounts to, as well as maybe some of the listeners, but what I'd like to do is let's look at it and go a little bit deeper into it. Mm-hmm. And you also have some books out there. You've got some teaching opportunities and things of that nature. And I think you've got a term that you may have coined, which is it Mappineering?
Mappineering, yes. It's my style of mind mapping.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Because I think it's kind of interesting if you tell our listeners what your background is and what led you into this, because you played pro ball.
I did. Well, first, I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California. I fell in love with football at an early age, and that passion helped me get a scholarship to Washington State University. Go Cougs. Then from there, like you said, I played several years of NFL football. Then I also played a few years in Canadian football before I was forced to retire due to the reconstruction of my right knee.
Mm,
Got two screws in there. And
mm,
good thing about it is that while I was playing professional football, I actually had my California real estate license. So I actually had several listings. I was selling properties while also playing football. So I kind of knew what I was going to do after the game. So
mhm,
that transition wasn't as hard as it was for most because I had a plan B already established for myself. Then I went into the mortgage business in Southern California and eventually end up owning and operating one of the top mortgage brokerages in all of Southern California, all during the early 2000s, and was living a millionaire lifestyle. I was actually making more money as a businessman than I did as a professional football player. Living, yeah, living this great life. I mean, big cars, fancy house, everything. But then the mortgage meltdown hit,
yeah.
in 2007, which led to the Great Recession of 2008. And I literally lost everything,
Mm,
So I've once living this great life, a former football player, businessman. I was literally homeless.
mm,
Lost everything. I mean, houses, cars, business, even lost my wife and kids. It was really the lowest part of my life at that point, and I was forced to move back to my mother's house. And when I moved back to my mom's, I went there with just a few things. I went with a gym bag full of workout clothes, my mountain bike, and this big box that I had that packed full of all of these motivational tapes, CDs, and books that I've accumulated over the years. I mean, Think and Grow Rich, How to
mm,
Win Friends and Influence People,
mhm.
Unlimited Power, Power of Now. I mean, all of
Oh,
the
yeah.
top successful books. I knew I had to go back into that box to kind of reset and rebuild my life, essentially, now that I was at this lowest point. And inside that box, there was this one book that stood out, and it was called the Mind Map book by Tony Buzan. I
Hmm.
don't personally remember ever buying it. I think somebody must have gave it to me. I didn't read it, but for whatever reason, it resonated with me at this point. So I started reading that book, and then I came up with a great idea, and that idea was to mind map all of the contents that was in that big box. So
Mm,
I would grab a book and I would just read it and build a mind map, read it, build a mind map. Now get rid of that book and grab another book. And then again, these were all of the top books that I was starting to mind map. And it was amazing. And by the way, this story that I'm lightly sharing with you now, I did in a TEDx talk a couple years ago that really kind of goes in deep about how mind mapping come in. And I encourage your listeners to look at that to really see how mind mapping really transformed my life. But
hmm.
on a high level, I spent 3 months mind mapping all of those books. And really, it was a transformative process because I learned two key things from that process.
Hmm.
The one was that all of the major thought leaders, Tony Robbins, Stephen Covey, Eckhart Tolle, all of them, they was basically trying to tell us one thing.
Hmm.
And that one thing was life is meant to be loved. You
Ah.
know, love
Hmm.
life.
Yep.
They all had their thoughts of processing, their systems, their philosophies, and all of that stuff on how to do it. But essentially, mind mapping got me to connect all of that to realize that that's what they're all talking about, that
Hmm.
life is meant to be loved. Then the second thing they taught was that I got from that is that we are in control of our lives and we can choose how we love or live our best lives. So life is meant to be loved, and I'm empowered to control how I love and live my best life. So from there, that transformative thing just happened, and I went from rags to riches basically in 8 months. From being homeless at my mom, this mind mapping journey that I went on, I know is solely responsible for me landing a good six-figure paying job within 8 months to transform my life. This is the clarity that that mind map stuff gave me, that I'll share with you guys for sure. But from there, after rebuilding my life, and this was 2009, 2010, I've been using mind mapping to now own one of the top mortgage software development companies in the country. mind mapping has allowed me to write 10 books, become an international bestseller. I have so many online courses and online community now that's international with a lot of people that are interested in learning more about mind mapping. So mind mapping has transformed my life. And just the last point I'll say real quick is that when pandemic hit us, that's when I really got called to start sharing this with others.
Mm.
And that's when I was like, you know what? Got a good day job, but that's not my passion. That's not my purpose. My purpose is to really try to show people the power of using this tool to love and live their best lives.
And that's what it all boils down to, doesn't it, John? Is
Yeah,
learn to love and love life. I really appreciate that. And that's very
absolutely.
true. That's what all these people talk about.
Yeah,
And yet we get ourselves so wrapped up in the day-to-day humdrum stuff that we do, we forget that
yeah.
because we are literally like the hamster in a hamster wheel.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I gotta go, I gotta go, I gotta go. No, sometimes you need to just stop and breathe. I love to tell people that. Oh, yeah,
Appreciate the fact that you got life, man. You
yeah,
know what I mean? For this
yeah.
brief moment of time that we're on earth, you are breathing right now, and it's worth celebrating and appreciating. And what I found too, that's very interesting, Kevin, is that when you are truly in love with life,
Mm,
life always, yes, always find ways to love you back.
that's it.
Good things start happening. Situation when you really just are grateful for just the fact that you're living. And one of the things that I found that helps me the most is mind mapping.
Hmm.
And the reason that I say that to you and your listeners is a mind map is a visual information management tool. Essentially, anything that you got thinking, anything you got swirling in your mind, a mind map is a perfect tool to let you take it out of here and actually see what it is you're thinking, actually see what it is you need to think about, decisions, problems, goals, stuff in your past, whatever is going on in here. You're planning a trip, whatever that may be. A mind map is the perfect tool. Out of all of the stuff that I've done, I have not found a better tool to help me see it, sort it, strategize it, and determine what my next best step will be, to give me greater perspective on what am I thinking about. And that's essentially what a mind map is. And the structure of a mind map, just the process of taking it out of here and putting it in a visual format, really does like four powerful things that I think is worth noting. Is one, it stimulates active learning.
Hmm.
A thing called active learning, where most of us, when we read books, it's like a passive learning thing. We're looking at it and we're not really, we may underline some things or highlight some things or write in the margin. But when I was mind mapping those books, when I was back in those days, I was actively learning because I was trying to find key words out of that
Mm.
chapter or out of that paragraph that best represents the message that was being communicated so I can add it to my mind map. So that's like I was more engaged with what I was learning. So that
Hmm.
was like active learning was what mind maps does. Then it also does something called meaningful learning, meaning that when you take that keyword off and you put it on your mind map, a mind map would allow you to connect that new information that you just learned to what you already know. So it's not like you're learning something and it's like, whatever, that's just a concept. I just memorized something. Most of us, I like to say, is, we like collecting dots. We feel the more that we can collect information and memorize information, the smarter we're going to be.
Hmm.
That's not necessarily the case, because there's a whole bunch of stuff we know that we don't do or take advantage of. But mind mapping allows you to take that new information and apply it to what you already know for what is known as meaningful learning, putting you in a better position to take action on that new information,
Okay.
which is what helped me transform my life so fast, in 8 months, because I was really understanding truly what Tony Robbins was saying. It wasn't just a theory anymore. It was like I knew what it was, what he was saying
Hmm.
that I need to do. Then it also stimulates something called whole brain learning, whole brain thinking, because most of us, it's said that we have a left side and a right side of our brains, right?
Hmm.
The left side is the cognitive,
Mm-hmm.
thinking, critical thinking side. The right side is the intuition, innovative, creative side of our
Right.
brains. And most people, just like our rights and left hands, we have a preferred side,
Right.
and that can kind of limit our thinking. If we're only using one side or the other, where a
That's
mind
right.
map, it stimulates the left side of your brain because you're actually critically thinking about what to take out of that, whatever you're thinking, to add to your mind map. Then it also stimulates the right side of your brain because you're thinking about where to put it on my mind map. Should I put a color? Should I use a symbol? Should I use a picture, an image, or something to identify or amplify that keyword that I put on there? So mind mapping also does that. It stimulates both sides of your brain to create what is called whole brain thinking. So it's very, very powerful, very, very powerful tool. And, unfortunately, it's not too known. It's not a common thing in our country for sure. Even around the world, it's relatively still not known by many, which is unfortunate, which is my passion and my goal is to really just share this tool as an option for people, for them to process at a higher level to, again, ultimately love and live their best lives.
Yep. And we have the active learning, the meaningful learning, the whole brain thinking. And what was the fourth one?
The whole brain thing, active learning, meaningful learning, whole brain thinking, and visual
Okay.
thinking, whole brain thinking, active learning, and meaningful learning.
Mm-hmm.
Visual thinking is just very powerful in that we can actually see what we're thinking, which is what I
Okay.
kind of mentioned.
Yeah. And that's actually an educational tool.
Yes.
It's used in education. That it's one thing to see it, it's another thing to do it, write it down, and it's
Mhm.
another thing to read it. But if you put all of those together and you are considered like, are you a are you an I'm going to use your term, are you an active learner or are you a passive learner?
Yeah.
So a passive learner just takes in all this information and doesn't do anything with it. They
Right.
understand it at a
Mhm.
level, a
Surface level.
scholastic
Yeah.
level, but they lose it when it comes to practical application. And that's
Yep.
what we need to be able to do if we're going to love life, right?
Yeah, and that's what they say. Knowledge is not power. It's applied knowledge is power.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that, I mean, that's another benefit of the mind map. And like you had mentioned, like mind maps are pretty much been used. Those who know about it, and the inventor of mind map, Tony Buzan, educator out of England, created mind mapping after studying the notes of Leonardo da Vinci, Einstein, Edison, just really seeing how they developed their notes and realizing that they use more symbols, images, and keywords in their notes, not like the bullet point stuff that we've been taught to do in our note
Hmm.
taking. That, he did very well, Tony Buzan, at sharing the term mind mapping and his philosophy and his tool all the way up until he passed away in 2018. He unfortunately passed away, and so I think that might have kind of stagnated the promotion and the spread of it, especially in the U.S.
Hmm.
Because most of the people in the U.S. that have ever heard of mind mapping and utilize it primarily use it for three ways. They use it for brainstorming,
Hmm.
they use it for note taking, and they
Hmm.
use it for project management.
Yep.
Most of your 500 Fortune 500 companies are all using it for brainstorming and project management. I mean, it's just an excellent tool to to brainstorm where the business is at and where the business should go when it comes to managing various projects, to implement plans. I mean, mind mapping is not a better tool because you can see all of the key components of that project you're managing, milestones, tasks, who's delegated. It's very awesome. Most of your Ivy League schools now are using mind mapping for note taking because
Hmm.
they're sharing it with their students and finding that when students are actually doing their notes, when using mind maps for note taking, when listening to lectures or reading books, they're finding increased test scores on a recent survey I just saw, because students are, it's essentially just on a basic level, it's easier for a student to close their eyes and visualize that information where they put it on the map versus on a bullet point structure kind of deal.
So let's get it right down to the brass tacks. Somebody's never done this before in their life. What's a good way to start doing mind mapping for yourself?
Great question. Here's a tool that I love to share with people because it's one of the most powerful and most profound. And by the way, this tool that I use is kind of a tool that represents my style of mind mapping, right?
Sure.
So as I just told you, the traditional style through project management, note taking, brainstorming, I found out over the years of being in this mind mapping world of, around the world, that I'm the only one that's really promoting it and talking about it and teaching it as a personal development tool, strictly as something that somebody can use on a daily, not just for those business ways or academic ways that they use it. And one of the Mappineering tools that I talk about that I would suggest people utilize is called the 5 W's plus 1 H mind map.
All right. No, no, wait.
W
Five W's
plus 1 H
plus one H.
mind map.
Okay.
This is the perfect mind map to use for problem solving, decision making, goal setting, visualization. And it
Mhm.
works like this. If, say, you're dealing with a problem that you're dealing with, you can grab a piece of paper, landscape size, and just put a title of the problem. Just come up with a title, issue with dad, problem at work, whatever that is, put it in the middle. Then
Yep.
from there, around the middle, you want to put who, what, when, where, why, and how. Those are the 5 W's and H,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Around your section. Now, let's start with the first who and start asking some thought provoking questions. Who's involved with this problem? Who can help with this problem? Who should be involved with this problem? Who shouldn't be involved? So just ask yourself a bunch of who questions around this problem. Then once you do that, you move to what? What actually is occurring? What could occur? What should occur? What is happening? Then once you brainstorm all of the what, then you move down to when. When is this problem happening? When should I solve this problem? When should I, seek help for this problem? Then you go to where. Where is this problem happening? Where should it be happening? Where should I make some adjustments in my life? Then you go to why. Why is it happening? Ask you a bunch of why questions. Then ask you a bunch of how questions. How should I fix this? How should I, proceed? Once you complete this whole process of this problem, this 5 W's plus H problem, and now you kind of step away from it, it's almost like always, yes, always, the solution to your problem reveals itself.
Yep.
It illuminates itself because now you have such greater perspective of this problem than you ever had before. And what I've been finding, working with my clients and my students on this, is that when they come to me with a problem, it's this intensity, it's this stress, it's this issue with the problem, it's this confusion, it's this overwhelm. But when I take them through this process, you feel this sense of calm come over them because now the problem is not in here, it's now out there on the map. It's not a personal thing anymore. Now they're looking at it as like a third person position,
And they're
which gives them,
objective.
yeah, and it gives them calm and peace. Now opens their mind up to the possible solution.
Hmm.
So that's just the 5 W's and 1 H simple way that I recommend people that can start easily using a mind map for immediate positive impact.
And here's the thing is I'm seeing as well that's pretty powerful stuff. And that is what I'm beginning to see in philosophical points of view and spiritual and things of that nature is we are moving away from linear thought and we're moving more towards cyclical thought.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we do that, for years I always had the idea I when I would work with stuff, I was doing mind mapping and didn't even realize it, but I worked from a standpoint of a target.
Mm-hmm.
You have a bullseye and you have the concentric rings around it. And I would see all the different things that are involved,
Mm-hmm.
and they all point to that one thing.
Yep.
And I even go
Connected.
so far as to say that I can put myself in the bullseye and see how many different ways I can affect the world around me. And it's
Right.
just there's so many different possibilities with cyclical thought. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I'm seeing with what you're sharing with I'm going to say Mappineering because it really
Yeah.
is powerful stuff and it's so
Thank
simple.
you.
I've
Yeah.
heard I've also heard examples of this. Some call it web weaving,
Yep.
and it's really interesting that way. And I've heard people they'll take, some people like to have a whiteboard. They'll have a
Hmm.
whiteboard in their office, and they'll step back and they'll put a giant circle,
Yeah.
and then they'll put whatever it is in the middle of that circle, and then the web part comes out where you end up putting like spokes out. And it
Right.
it can go out, and it can go out beyond the five W's and one H. You
Yeah.
could have a
It
dozen of them out there, but all of them move toward the center. All of them
connects.
surround it, and
Connects.
you're able, yeah, it connects, it
Yeah.
interconnects just like a web.
Yeah,
So,
and just like our minds work this way, which is another reason why they say mind mapping is such a powerful tool, or what I call the most powerful thinking tool in the universe. And that's because, all of our thoughts are connected to other thoughts.
yeah,
You know, everything is connected in our minds. You know what I mean? And so when you see a mind map and you're seeing how everything connects, I mean, our minds naturally gravitate towards that because that's how it works. Our
when
brains connect to everything.
even if you look at it from a standpoint of somebody who's doing coaching, for an example,
Hmm. Yeah.
and people come to you, if you're a coach, people come to you for guidance and they want some insights and stuff, and you sit back and you listen to their story, which is another key issue to me,
Hmm.
is active listening in the process.
Yep.
And that is, okay, I'm going to listen to everything that you're saying, and I'm going to make my brain shut down, because a common mistake that a lot of us will make is, okay, sure, I'll be more than happy to help you, but I want you to listen to what I have to say. But
Right.
that isn't going to tell you a thing.
Mm-mm.
It's your
Mm-mm.
perception. Let them
Yep.
talk, let them share. And then you could almost, I'm going to say, as a coach, you could put down Joe Dokes in the middle of it and pick out the high points of what Joe's talking about, or
Yep.
Jane, or whoever. And
Hmm.
then you can really isolate and say, okay, now you can take on and put on the hat of the coach, and you can say, this is what I'm seeing.
Right.
And they'll
Yep.
say, how did you do that? And it's
Yeah.
just let it happen.
Yeah. I do all of my coaching sessions. I have a pretty good, strong coaching business too. And I do all of my coaching sessions on mind maps.
Hmm.
So my clients already know that when our session, they've started a mind map, they'll send me the link to it and we'll collaborate and coach on the same mind map. And my goal is just to ask them some thought-provoking questions
Yep.
based on what I'm hearing to add to their mind map.
Yeah.
Because each one of the subtopics, if you really think about it, each one of the subtopics you put on a mind map could be itself its own mind map.
Yeah.
Everything you can brainstorm, you can go down so many different rabbit holes or wormholes with a mind map and lead it all to where it connects. And it ultimately is this meaningful learning that I was saying, because it really starts to make sense and resonate with you in ways that you never thought before, because now you see, not just the big picture, but you see how all of the minor details connect to the big picture and why
So
they connect that way.
so we've done a really good job here, and how to do some mind mapping, and we're talking, proper utilization of the left and right brain, and getting some proper learning techniques in there, and so forth. And the other thing that is really interesting, there's a spiritual side of this. And
Mm-hmm.
we talk about, sometimes the term might come out about our higher self and
Mm-hmm.
things of this nature. And you can even get into guides and helpers and angels and all this kind of stuff. But, you know, when I am setting down and I'm putting this mind map together, that's when all this other stuff comes in. You can call it the higher self, you can call it helpers, you can call it, you
Mm-hmm.
know, guides, whatever you want to call them. You can call them bubblegum wrappers. It doesn't
Right.
matter what you call them,
Right.
but listen to everything that's involved, because that is the essence of it.
Yeah.
You're not looking at this, like you said in the beginning, you're not looking at this in a bullet point thing, because
Mm-mm.
when you put bullet points on, you think bullet point, well, bullet point number one is here, bullet point number two is here, bullet point number three is here, and everything sets up that way. So that means, if at a subconscious level, bullet point five does not have the priority of bullet point one, even though they're
Right.
probably equal. but it's not the way our brain works. Our brain works is, I'm going to look at number one because that's what I need to do. Well,
Right.
maybe you need to look at five.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what mind mapping does. It makes you
Yeah.
look and say, I never saw that.
Yeah. Maybe five can help you with one, you know,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh, absolutely.
but you may not even see it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah. And
That like,
don't worry about placement.
yeah,
Just let it flow. I mean,
let it flow. Let it
some
flow.
of this stuff is great even for writers when you think
Hmm.
about it. I
Yep.
mean, my
Writer's block.
gosh.
Yep.
Yeah. Think of
Writer's
your,
block is perfect for that. You know, one of the things that that is again my flagship or the most, I think, out of all of the thousands and thousands of possibilities of what someone can mind map, you know,
Mhm.
literally anything. I mean, from a third grader to a CEO and
Yep.
everywhere in between can use a mind map for something. I think out of all of those, there's one that is just the absolute most important one that I suggest everyone do.
And
And
that
that's,
is
and I call it the I am mind map.
perfect.
The
You
I
got a
am
book by
mind
that
map.
name, don't you?
I do. I do. And I got a course and all of that stuff. And the reason why I'm so excited about this, because kind of what you were just talking about, that connection to our higher self, that connection to our higher power, because that was, like I said, the one of the things, the other thing that I took out of that experience of mind mapping all of those contents of that box was that I'm in control of how
Mm.
I love and live my best life. But to control and live my best life, I must get very clear on who I am
Hmm.
and what my intention with my life is.
Right.
Which that first 3, 4 months, I mind mapped all of that books when I was at my mother's. The next 3, 4 months, I spent specifically asking myself, who am I and what's most important to me in my life,
Yep.
which was the birth of, you know, the beginning of what is now known as the I am mind map. And of all of the mind maps, and if anyone interested in mind mapping, I strongly suggest that you start with an I am mind map. Because in that process, I came up with four key pillars or four key anchors of that that I realized that are my core to for me to love and live my best life. And it's health, wealth, success, and happiness. Health, wealth, success, and happiness. And what I did when I was thinking about that, I was asking myself, you know, what is most important to me in my life? You know, really, you know, now that I have nothing, you know, what is really most important to me in life? And I landed on health. You know, there's
Mm.
nothing more important than the quality of health. You know, there's, you know, health is everything. You know, if you
Hmm.
don't have health, you don't have life kind of deal.
Hmm.
So
Yep.
I put that on my mind map. Then I asked myself again, I was like, well, what else is most important to me in my life? And after hours and days and weeks of thinking about it, I said, wealth. You know, I definitely want an abundance of stuff. I said, yeah, that makes sense. Then I said, well, what else, you know, makes you know, would make me thoroughly happy? And I landed on success. Yeah, I want to have success in my life. I want to feel successful. Then the last one I landed on was happy. You know, I don't want to, you know, if I got four key things, these are the four. I want to be healthy. I want to be wealthy. I want to be successful. I want to be happy. So as I built that mind map, just the basic form of it, I started saying that self to myself all the time. You know, I'm healthy, I'm happy, I'm successful, I'm wealthy. You know, it started to be like a mantra, kind of like an incantation,
Hmm.
you know, where I just started feeling that. But then after some time, I started to think, like, wait a minute, you know, health is so general. You know, what does that really mean? And with mind mapping, it always leads to these kind of questions. Because when you put it out on a mind map, you look at it for long enough, and you're like, all right, you know, let's break this down. You know, let's really analyze what this truly means other than just this key word. And that's the importance of keywords. You know, when you use your mind map, it is said that you should only use keywords or very short phrases so you can allow your mind to go anywhere, you know, versus a long sentence that's just keeping you kind of thought in there. If you just put one word down there and you think about it one day, and you come back another day and see that word, you may have a whole different thought, you know, or
You know,
about that.
it's interesting because in shamanic practices, for an example,
Mm-hmm.
there's a there's a thing that's talked about and it's brought about by some of the indigenous people of North America, and it was
Mm-hmm.
called the singing stone. And it's a
Mm.
process where you pick up a stone and you look at the stone, and then you put out an intention. Let's pick out, what does health mean to me?
Mm-hmm.
And then what you do is you, this is going to sound weird, but then you forget about the word. You forget about that phrase. What does health mean? Then you look at the stone and you look for any objects that come out of that stone.
Mm.
You might see a raven, you might see a buffalo, you might see a schoolhouse, you might see a waterfall, you might,
Mm-hmm.
you see anything at all, but you have put that other thought aside and you just pick stuff out. And you pick
Mm.
out, typically you can do as many as you want, but you do
Mm-hmm.
like four things. Four seems to
Right.
be a good number that we're talking about today. So you
Right.
pick out four things, and after you've done those four things, you turn the stone again
Mm.
and you look for four more things. And you do this four times. So
Right.
four series of four. And when you're done, you pick out the key points of every one of those points, every one of those things, in
Mm.
light of, what does health mean to me?
Yeah.
And everything just falls together. And
Right.
if that isn't mind mapping, I don't know
That
what is.
is. That sounds like instead of the rock, it's the
And
mind map
yeah,
kind of
and
process.
that's actually within the framework of, in divination.
Mm-hmm.
And we think, oh, yeah, divination, you're working with all these weird spirits and stuff. No, you are and you aren't,
Right.
because it's all right there. All we have
Yeah.
to do is learn how to do it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you have shared a very simple process of learning how to do it. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for noticing that. Yeah, because that's the goal. And what really was empowering for me is that when I really started to look at my health rock, if you will,
mhm,
I looked at it and found out that it's spiritual health, physical health, and mental health. Those are the three components of health that I know I must prioritize, focus on, improve upon if I truly want to love my life.
mhm,
And as I looked at the wealth section, I am wealthy. I asked myself the same thing. What the heck does that mean, really? I know
mhm.
what wealth means, but then when I looked up the word and realized that wealth meant an abundance of something,
Yeah,
I started asking myself that question. What would I want an abundance of in my life to be happy? And I landed on positive emotions. I wanted a bunch of positive emotions. I wanted a bunch of specialized knowledge, skills. Got that from Think and Grow Rich,
yeah,
Napoleon Hill. And I also wanted a bunch of freedom. I figured if I had a bunch of positive emotions, love, enthusiasm, optimism, joy, feel I had a bunch of specialized knowledge when it comes to communication, performing, coaching, mentoring. If I had a bunch of freedom, which include financial freedom, freedom from stress,
mhm,
time freedom, that would make me happy. Then I moved over to the success topic on my I am mind map. What does that mean? What needs to happen for me to that? Then I landed on I wanted to have successful relationships, successful rewards, and successful results. If I can have success in those key categories, naturally with relationships being as powerful as, they are to us in our lives, results, winning and achieving our goals, then celebrating our wins with rewards, I'll be loving life.
there you
And
go.
that last one was happy.
Uh-huh.
I am happy. What do I need to have happen for me to truly be happy? And again, after hours, weeks, months, and grappling with this, I landed on, for me to truly be happy, I need to be blessed for my past, meaning that when I look at my past or think about my past, I'm truly blessed about it. There's no guilt, there's no regret, there's no animosity, resentment, none of that. I really feel blessed for the bad times as well as the good times. Then at the same time, I need to feel grateful for the future, all of the stuff that's coming, everything that's coming in my life. And if I can experience being blessed in the past, grateful for the future, and be fulfilled in my present, like right now, I'm happy.
There you
So I
go.
put those on my mind map next to happy, blessed, grateful, fulfilled, past, future, present. And that tool right there, that I am tool, I've looked at every day since. It's been 15 years now. I think about it every day. It's been serving as my commandments, my personal commandments, my personal constitution, if you will, my master playbook. It's my GPS.
Yeah.
I tell people it's my GPS. So when life throws me curveballs or something happens that I don't expect, and and all that stuff, I go right back to my I am mind map and say, wait a minute, this is who I am, this is who I'm intending to be. And it always guides me effectively through what I'm dealing with. And that's why I encourage people. I don't care how old you are, I don't care how successful you are, anything. There is some immense, tremendous power to see all of the key components of your life, all of your core values, your beliefs, what's most important to you, your goals. There's a tremendous power of being able to see all of that in one snapshot on a mind map.
You know,
It's it's
there's
it's huge.
it is. And you just brought something to mind to me is there's magic in mind mapping.
There is. That's good. There is.
Yeah, it is
It truly
magical
is.
when you think
It,
about it.
it truly is. And I'm sincerely blessed and grateful to be called
Hmm.
to promote and share this tool. I really believe my story up until this point, and it's hard. Sorry for getting emotional, but it's something that really means a lot. And this is something, again, I want people to hopefully experience with my work is when you're aligned with what you feel like you're called to do. This is what you feel. This is
Yeah.
what you feel when you do it. And it's a
And
beautiful feeling,
yeah,
just to know that, hey, I'm in alignment with my higher self. I'm living my divine purpose, and every time I get a chance to do it, I get that feeling like, yeah, thank you,
tear,
God. Thank you, universe, for making me this guy.
yeah, tears of joy to spread the word, and tears of joy to cleanse the soul, and
There it
tears of
is.
joy to just be,
Just
and
be,
yeah, yeah.
just be the
Powerful
loving.
stuff. This is awesome.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Thank you.
I think we already know the answer to this, but what exactly does John do to create a better life for himself?
Constantly connect with my higher power and that little voice in my head, which helps again with this I am mind map thing. I constantly am looking at it, visualizing it, and finding areas on my I am mind map that I need to focus on or I like to give more attention to. And as long as I keep staying in there, I know that I'm moving in the right direction to satisfy, I guess, my higher power.
There you go.
I have this conversation with folks sometimes, my religious folks, and I'm not a religious guy. I respect religion for what it's doing
Hmm. Right.
and the intent. But, we talk about, most religions have this day of judgment,
Yeah.
that you go stand before your maker, and, it's going to be determined whether you believe in Jesus or
Hmm.
Allah or
Hmm.
whatever, whether heaven and hell. And I don't know if that's all going to, that's going to be. But if there is a day of judgment that we have a chance to meet with our maker, I strongly believe our maker is going to ask us at least this question. You know, what did you do with the gifts and talents that I gave you to make the world a better place?
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. You
That's
don't
going
have
to be the question.
yeah, you don't have to have a judgment thing for that because
Yeah.
judgment has negative connotations, but
Yeah.
you can ask yourself that question when it's time to move on. What have I done?
What have I done?
Yeah.
And I want, when that question is presented, I definitely want to have the warm, fuzzy feelings and tears of
Yeah.
joy that I did all I can with the life that I have
And
to live
like
leave this place better.
we could so easily spin off on this, but you could almost make that a daily mantra.
Hmm.
What have I done today to make this a better place?
What have I done today to make this a better place?
What have
That's
I
a
done today to
powerful
make
daily
yeah.
mantra.
And what have I done today to make myself better?
Yeah,
And
to make this
just
place better. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
Yep.
John, how do people get in touch with you? What's the best way?
Well, I'm all over social media platforms. JohnDiggs.com
Okay.
is the best place. If anybody's really excited about learning more, you can always email me directly, john@johndiggs.com. Please reference the podcast. I got special gifts and things of that nature I like to
Oh,
share with people that come to
awesome.
my podcast, from t-shirts to books to free
Nice.
mind map templates and all of that stuff. But I hope that if this resonates with anyone, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. This is my passion, this is my love, and I'm here for you.
No, we're here for you, and we thank you so much, John. This has been enlightening and truly a joy. So thanks ever so much for being a part of us and sharing your beautiful words with us today here on Toward a Better Life. You're a very, very special person. Don't ever forget that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, John, for showing some practical uses of mind mapping for our personal growth. Check out the show notes for more information about John Diggs, his books, opportunities for speaking engagements, and how he can help you through his website, johndiggs.com. That's johndiggs.com. As always, there are links in the show notes. If you are seeking insights and advice on how to create a better life for yourself, and if you'd like to dive in a little bit deeper for self-care, self-development, or distant shamanic work, or Reiki, just drop me a note, drop me a line to kevin@towardabetterlife.com for your free discovery call. You can also visit my website of the same name, towardabetterlife.com, for past episodes, blog entries, ways to enhance your spiritual journey, and a few products to assist you. Send all your inquiries to me. Please subscribe and follow Toward a Better Life through your favorite podcast platform, and please leave a review on Apple and Spotify podcast. It helps to spread the word about the program and help to create a better life for all of us. If you have any questions, or if you'd like to share your story, music, prose, if it's an audio file, just send it to me as an MP3. Or if you want to be my guest, please write to me, kevin@towardabetterlife.com. If you just want to say hi, just send it to me, kevin@towardabetterlife.com. I'm also on social media. Until next week, do enjoy your journey toward a better life.